Everyone, this is season 1, episode 2 of the Dorklist. With me today is Vanessa Walilko. Vanessa is the international award-winning jewelry and fashion designer behind Cali Butterfly. At age 8, she took a beaded jewelry class and fell in love with putting together little beads in order to make whatever ideas she could dream up. She took a chainmail class in 2006 and hasn't stopped linking together lots of little rings since. Pieces from her wearable art collections have been featured in international exhibitions and won international awards. When Vanessa is not making jewelry, she's usually crocheting tiny toys, playing Stardew Valley. I didn't know you have a Switch because I do too. Or writing papers on critical theory. What? We didn't talk about that. Everyone, please enjoy episode 2 or don't. It's your call.
The big question is,
Yeah.
big question is, what's on your dork list right now? And by that, I mean exactly what you think I mean.
Oh my God. All right.
Anything you want to scream from the balcony of your Viker warrior hellish heart? Viker? Viking.
Viking.
Viking!
Viking. Once, this was years ago, with
Mhm.
like an old computer and a very old version of Word, but it would autocorrect my name from Vanessa Walilko to Vane's Warlike. And I was like, that is my Viking name.
Yes. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right. It
That's
was so
amazing.
good. Let's see. I'm currently obsessed with, so I actually today, Cody Rhodes is going to be at Clash at the Castle, and I made a bunch of scale mail for him for his outfit. I've been doing that for 2 years now.
Wait a minute. Okay. I'm assuming this is a celebrity in a
It's a pro
cosplay.
wrestler.
Oh,
It will be familiar to wrestling fans.
my
Cody
gosh.
Rhodes is the current WWE undisputed heavyweight champion. He's got the belt. He's the boy. I've been making his scale mail since he got back to WWE.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the most incredible thing. Like after all like the pain and grief that I experienced from like 2017 on, and now I'm like doing all this cool stuff again, and it's just been so inspiring and exciting for me, and like I want to make more stuff and do more things. It's just they call them premium live events because people don't pay anymore. You just log into Peacock and you can watch it. But they used to be the pay-per-views, and so he's fighting AJ Styles.
And he's wearing your stuff today?
Yeah, on his robe.
I
Yeah.
have Peacock. Oh my God.
Yeah, watch it.
Dude. Yeah, for anybody wondering, Vanessa makes fucking chainmail. How did you get into making chainmail? How did you get into making chainmail?
Chainmail. I've been making jewelry since I was 8. Beaded jewelry, like little seed beads, sewing them together. And I've always been familiar with chainmail because of medieval armor. And so I started out doing like beaded, I called it bead mail, where it was just like lots of intersecting loops to kind of mirror chainmail. But I have this local art center, Little Street Art Center, and they were offering a chainmail class. And I was like, well, I'm doing this. And then I
Obviously.
took that class and then immediately started making clothing. If you're gonna link 100 rings together, you might as well link 15,000 rings together. So then I ended up working as a production assistant for a couple jewelry designers, and then I just went out on my own and had my own business. And so I did the whole art fair circuit and all that stuff, and taught chainmail jewelry for years and years and years. And then had a series of life-altering occurrences, and didn't make chainmail for a while, and then managed to get into it again. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I want to run my own business again. I really miss this.
Did you want to touch on the grief stuff?
We can. Yeah.
This is a safe fucking grief space. Look, I love talking about dead parents, like that my parents died, that my cousin died, that people are so afraid. It's so taboo, and people don't want to rock the boat. Fucking rock the boat. There is no boat. I'm treading water my whole life. Like,
this is the astonishing thing, because again, I think about how people are so alienated from their feelings. That's a whole other 5-hour conversation. B, their bodies, and then C, like the process of living and dying. And they don't want to think about it, and they don't want to face it. It's just they want good times. And the reality is people die. They are no more. People get sick sometimes for a long time before they die. Like, you can't act like this is not going to happen or it's not going to touch you, because it comes for everybody. So you might as well have a conversation about it. And again, especially with grief, people really are so scared of having these real conversations about it because they don't want to be vulnerable in any
Yeah.
way. And they
Yeah.
don't want to face the idea that you could be injured in a way that you can't recover from. Because
Why? Because we were taught it was inconvenient for other people.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes. And people will treat your illness. Again, I know plenty of chronically ill people. People will
Mhm.
treat your illness like a burden. People will treat your grief like a burden. I get it. I get it. I don't go to the doctor because I don't trust doctors because I've caught enough of them in lies and gaslighting. So I have the opposite issue.
You actually, oh, so you've chosen not to go to doctors anymore.
Unless it's a really serious issue, I don't go.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. And again, in my head just now, I heard 12-year-old Erica / my mother's voice saying, well, maybe you should pull back on how many appointments you have right now too. Because
Oh, yeah.
what if I'm inconvenient? What if I am hypochondriac? That's what I didn't know what that word meant. And my mom kept saying that's what I was. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, do I have that? And then I figured out what it meant. And it's like, oh, no, I genuinely have a numb patch on my leg because of a pinched nerve in my back. And my mom didn't believe me about it. And
Oh my God.
oh my God. Oh, I definitely got us off track. Let's go to the dark shit. What's your grief?
2017 through 2018. So
37 minutes of grief, loss, and trauma stories later.
Sorry, Jesus.
it was brutal. It was brutal. And I took care of him. And that was one of those things where, like, I had been running my own business. I had been teaching. I had been doing all these things. And I was just like, what the fuck does any of this matter anymore?
Yeah.
What does any of this matter anymore? Yeah. So it was like 2017, 2018, 2019. And that kind of led me down this whole like journey of learning about like parentified children, emotionally immature parents, but also
Mhm.
trauma, unresolved trauma. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's trauma all the way down, right?
All the way down, man. Good God.
There were
Oh.
several years of just being like, man, fuck everything, and I don't care.
Sidebar, for any listener who has not yet had any one big moment of grief, whether it's a death, a divorce, a job loss, a job quitting, whatever, any one of those issues is enough to stop a herd of elephants. When it's compacted like that with what Vanessa's just mentioned, what I went through, it was, this 2.5-year time span of uncle, dad, aunt, mom, cousin, something else, like COVID.
Yes. Right.
Any one
Yeah.
moment of loss, grief, whatever. And grief is not just death. For anybody who says otherwise, fuck that noise. When that much gets compounded, there is a point of diminishing returns where there's only so much your body can mentally, your person can, your flesh suit, your Edgar suit. There's only so much your Edgar suit can contain. Any further immediate deaths and traumas after that didn't add much because either I was just so used to it, like in the movie Clue, towards the end of the film, they're just walking around and like, there's another dead body. When any one of those things happen, everything changes. My honeyBadger levels went up. Like I did not give a flying fuck anymore. After my dad died, like my mom was still alive. So there was still this invisible tether, that cord was still there. And I didn't know it was there until she was gone. The day she died, I leveled up like 18 points of power and ascended to goddess status because maybe I absorbed some of her give a shit attitude, but like I became assertive. I've never been assertive in my life. And now it turns out that's a trauma response for me, but it's fucking empowering. Today at Walmart, the kid who's probably my age was working at the photo area, but also monitoring the tech stuff. I asked him if I could have his help. We needed to look at something, this box of headphones behind the counter. And he's like, yeah, which ones? And I said, whatever these are, this one. And he's like, oh no, you don't want that pair. They break real easy. I'm like, take those out of the cabinet, please, now. I didn't have the time. honeyBadgers don't have time for this. Like, that happens. Like there is a power that comes with grief for me. Everything changes. My relationships with toxic family members came to light.
Yeah.
Everything shakes loose. Every relationship changes it for the better because you have that. I have that same mentality of what the fuck is the point of this anymore?
Yes.
Why am I staying at a job that I'm getting sexually harassed at and there was a murder in the parking lot?
Yes.
No. Back to you, Vanessa, with the weather.
When you say you're wired for it, I had to write that down so I wouldn't forget it. Because, yeah, I don't think everyone is necessarily wired for that. But like, I felt like I was uniquely prepared for COVID because my world had already ended.
Yeah.
So I don't care about this world anymore. Like, I don't care. I don't care about all these niceties. I don't care about the comfort of others. I don't care about playing pretend. I'm not going to anymore. I'm not going to make myself small anymore to make you comfortable.
Time for a topic change.
You're so exhausted after funerals, and by the time the funeral's done, like, it's a blessing, like, it's over.
Yes.
And then mostly the only people coming over in a few hours are the people really close to, like, supposedly. different
There's a
episode.
whole other
That's gonna be
conversation.
D is for duh. Sorry. But she looks at me and she's like, just cute mom face, and she's like, when did you gain all that weight? Okay, look, I'm like, no, see, I'm really surprised at your reaction to that, because I mean, it was nothing but body shaming, food shaming growing up. That's what I thought was normal for parents to talk about.
Yeah.
First of all, hormones. B, genetics. C,
Yes.
shut the fuck up. Like,
Shut the
why do
fuck
you
up.
think that's appropriate to say? And I
Yeah.
love my body. Like,
Right. When is that appropriate to say? Ever? But especially after your dad's funeral.
fun in funeral. We did play Cards Against Humanity after my mom's funeral, and my sister and I were the winning combo, because my sister's was the winning combo, I think, because it was like my dead parents humping in heaven. Like, that was like we just lost it. We're like, okay, grief over. Like,
Yeah.
we're just we're just hitting pause on the grief for a couple days, because that's just gold.
Again.
And I know that's how she was brought up, and I know I hear myself saying I know that's how she was brought up, but
Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Again, my grandmother is the body shamer, right? My mom didn't body shame me because she was body shamed, right? So she knew that was bad. Don't do that. You're going to feel bad. Let's not do that to this kid. She did a whole bunch of other damage to me, and she behaved in a lot of really bizarre ways. You know what I don't do? Any of that. So when people pull the like, well, that's how she was raised. And granted, like I hear that all the time. I've even said that before. And it's like, I think about how I was raised and who I have become. And it's not that. Like I clocked all of that. And I was just like, no.
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 You're not, Vanessa.
No.
I'm actually really relieved to hear you say that. You're not wrong. Let me show you this this picture of my children. This was a choice to stay childless. I made that choice, I think, probably when I figured out what sex was, I was 15 or 16. I'm like, oh, that's how babies are made. Okay, never doing that, because I don't want to do to a human what I feel happening to me emotionally, mentally, and physically. It was financial abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. And I thought it was normal.
The financial abuse also people don't talk about. I feel like that is also rampant, because the same here.
Shaming me when I would ask, like, I always hesitated to ask if I could have $20 to go to the movie with my friends, because all I heard was about the scarcity in our family growing up. Like, oh, it's going to be a thin Christmas. It's going to be like, I was 8. I was still believing in Santa Claus. Yeah. Like, and all I hear is like every Christmas, oh, it's going to be a thin Christmas this year. And it would be like beautiful. It would be lovely. And to Mom's credit, we were emotionally spoiled, like not physically. Like we had hand-me-down toys, which were awesome. Like to this day I love thrifting, because there's gems in there. I'm sorry, can we take a moment to understand the light bright that's right there? eBay. I haven't unpacked it yet from this office, but and there was definitely a sorry I complained about the money thing. That's not your burden. And I, picked up that love kernel and held it close to my heart. But that is absolutely telling in hindsight now, that the exact same is true for the trauma shit as well. Yeah. The fat shaming. Her grandmother fat shamed her. So she didn't say it meanly to us. It was casual. It was like on the bed watching Friends. Oh, when'd you gain all that weight? It wasn't cruel. So it's the same. I'm having this epiphany as live from the Dorklist. It's like, that's why it always sounded not mean.
And that, so this is what is so insidious about emotional abuse. No one ever hit me growing up, right? So I truly didn't think I was abused for the longest time, because I knew people who were getting smacked and hit with belts and all sorts of terrible things. And of course, my grandmother would tell me stories about what happened to her as a kid, because that's appropriate for a child, you know. And I grew up with a family who was constantly telling me that they loved me, that they do anything for me, that they die for me. That I heard that all the fucking time, and I didn't believe it. I was like, and I assumed there was something wrong with me that I didn't believe them. And then literally no person from my family showed up to my boyfriend's funeral. I had friends from every era of my life, literally from high school through present day, at that funeral, and no one from my family was at that funeral.
My Thor armor just activated. No,
Yeah.
like I felt
Yeah.
my it wasn't a nausea, it was a tightening of my abs. Like I felt that right there. Fuck that though.
Well, but this is the thing where it's like, again, I was spoiled. I was an only child and an only grandchild. I didn't have like a Shira doll. I got all the Shira dolls. I didn't have a gem doll. I had all the gem dolls, right? And then you realize, like, people, it's really easy to say I love you. It's really to say I die for you. Those are just words. But you have to look at people's actions. What are people actually doing that shows any of that? Like, what is the sacrifice? What is the difficult thing that you're willing to do for somebody? And I must have always known, like, I just don't feel this is true. And then it actually got tested, because there hadn't been any tests up until then. And so they're doing all these things for me that they consider generous, but aren't actually generous. Like I said, if you're buying a lot of stuff for somebody, but you have the money, that's an easy thing to do, right? Yeah. A difficult thing, if you are uncomfortable with going to a funeral, is going to that funeral to support the person that you claim to love.
I'm the opposite with funeral stuff. I grew up going to wakes, like 4 years old. That's just what you did on Fridays. You would just, I didn't know. Like, I remember the first time, like, I kind of rebelled, like I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't want to go when it was someone I loved, obviously, because I knew how sad it was going to be. And also the physical body is scary for a child. And I mean, Catholics, like, boy, really fucking know how to drag it out. Like, you've got the viewing, you have the wakes, like 2 or 3 days of wakes, and then the church service, and then the burial, and then the post-burial calm hours, and then the party afterwards, the reception, and then the post-party party. Like, no wonder my mom asked me when I gained so much weight. Like, she's exhausted. By the time he passed, it was a relief. And at his wake, I was like prom excited, because he was it was cremated, so there's no body, which took fucking 90% of the dread away from me.
Yes, right.
And I remember walking in to the funeral home, which is adjacent and shares a fucking wall with my pediatrician. Pediatrician. Let me say that again. Pediatrician.
Get him on the way in. Get him on the way out.
Oh my God. It was impressive. My father did have a lot of his hands in a lot of pots in the community, like the town planning board, all this. He was not a saint either. It turns out, like, don't worry, Mom, I'm going to give Dad his due on the podcast. His abuse for me was neglect. Yeah. And emotional immaturity. Yeah. Everybody came in, and I was like getting so excited because I was out of town. Like, I got to see everybody. Like, talk about compacting stress. Like, let's just have a big reunion, like right there. It was people from his barbershop chorus, like old relatives I had, not old relatives, but like, well, yes, old relatives, but relatives I hadn't seen in years, maybe decade. I don't care who did or didn't go. It's not personal. Even if they live next door to the pediatrician and funeral home. What were we talking about? Handing back the torch to you. How are you? How do you do? How are you doing? How is it?
I thankfully was warned that the second year would be worse,
Mhm.
and it was, because, like you said, everybody thinks that you're done, or that you should be done, or that you're
And
going to
that
go
you're
back to
mourning.
normal.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody checks in on you anymore. Nobody asks how you're doing. Nobody bothers, because you
You
should
don't
be
want to rock
done
the
by
boat.
now. Again, a lot of people, they want good time gang, right? They want fun. They want bar friends. They want party friends. They don't want people who are going to talk about difficult things, because they don't want to face, again, their own vulnerability, their own inadequacy or feelings of inadequacy, whatever. Like, it's too sensitive, and they don't want to face it. And I think that result is that they are blunted to, like, real relationships, real connections, like real meaning. um it just feels that way to me, because I feel like a lot of people are not touched by things, and I feel things very deeply, and I'm always just like, how do you walk through life? Like, how do you, like, I remember there was some TikTok, and it was like, an autistic brain is like 30% more active at rest than a neurotypical brain. And my visceral reaction was, what do you mean, a brain at rest? Like, what do you mean? It
No
is either
joke.
firing on all cylinders, or I'm unconscious. There is no in between.
Fuck yes. I don't know how that isn't true for everybody. Like, what do you mean a brain at rest is the same reaction that I had when somebody's like, I don't know how you can wear earplugs. Like, I have I call them my magic writing beads. It's just pink pink
Oh,
foam
yeah.
earplugs.
Oh, yeah.
And someone's like, "Oh my God, how do you write in silence like that?" I'm like, "You think it's silent even with my earplugs? The silent blocks out the physical noise, the dogs barking, my husband's business calls, like the meetings he's
Yes.
in, because he
Yes.
works from home.
Yes.
It blocks out the street noise. It doesn't do jack shit for what's happening in the brain. The 70,000 conversations I'm having with myself and my past self at the same time, I don't know how to shut them off.
Yeah, that circus is 24/7. That is not
24/7.
stopping. Yeah.
And there's no soundproofing between your tent and the tent next to you. Like,
I don't know if you're the same way. I'm this way. I'm either like, I need lots of stimulation in order to focus, or sometimes I need zero. Like, there will be too much sound, and I'm like, everything has to be off. Everything has to be off. But other days, I'm like, I need a podcast on, and I need a YouTube show on, and they have to both be on, but they both are quiet, just to have low grade noise.
oh,
I
okay.
switch between. It depends on the day. Finally, at a point, you'd asked, like, where am I at with my grief now, like 7 years out, basically. And I'm finally at the point where I realized, like, oh no, I need to do my stuff again. I work
Nice.
in public relations and media relations. I also do social media management, which I love my boss. I ended up asking my boss, I was like, I need to take a sabbatical, because, and she was worried. She's like, this isn't you like soft quitting. And I was like, I am taking a sabbatical so I don't quit, because I like working with you. And I have learned a lot here in terms of, like, I think about when I was running my business full time, I didn't know how to write a pitch. I didn't know any of that. Now I know, like, how to write a pitch, how to find a media list. Like, I have access to all of this.
Wow.
And so it's been great. Yeah. And, but I took that sabbatical and realized, like, oh yeah, this is fine for a job, and working for her is fine. I don't want to make this a career. Like, I have a couple clients right now, that I on my own for like marketing and whatever, and I'm like, no, I can't. This is easy money, so I'm focusing on this, as
Mhm.
opposed to working on my stuff, which is going to be more difficult to get off the ground, but it's going to be
Mhm.
more rewarding.
Sure.
So that's the stuff that I need to be focusing on and working on. Because I took a 3 week sabbatical. I was making clothes, I was making chainmail, I was doing all
Mm.
this stuff for me. And, like, that's my actual passion. It's not, it, again, I actually love the clients I have right now.
Nice.
They trust us, they trust me, they're fun, they're just like, it's just a joy to interact with them. Um, but I don't want to go out and get my own PR clients. Like,
Right.
no, the amount of energy, as you know, when you're running your own business or you're trying to build your own thing, the
Yeah.
amount of energy that you have to put into it for the thing that you're just kind of settling for because you're too scared to go after the real thing. No. So,
Until the grief hits, and then your honey
oh,
badger shows up and does it for you.
yeah, I was at C2E2 and I met Chris Claremont. I adore that man. He wrote the Dark Phoenix saga. Like, that was, I mean, I was more into the cartoon than the comic, but like I have multiple animation cells from that arc of the Dark Phoenix,
That was
right? I have
amazing.
cosplayed the Dark Phoenix. Like I love that character. And I met him and I could feel my excitement hit a ceiling. I was like, oh my God, is this the rest of my life where I'm just never going to get that excited again? Like truly that's what I felt but everything was tamped down. It was wild to feel it physically though, of just it
Yeah.
like it thudded in me. And I was like, oh, that's it? That's all? Oh, fuck. Because I got
Oh,
big emotions, big ideas, big
oh,
everything, and to just be like, in
yeah.
a little cage. But it was necessary because everything was painful. And so I wasn't feeling anything.
Yeah.
Things are a little less painful. So
It
now
all
I've got
just
big
blends
feelings.
in.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
background noise. It's just like whatever. But yeah, so I'm finally at a point where I'm like, yeah, I have to do it. And I just had a conversation with my boss yesterday, and because she's working on her thing too, and she wants to be accountability partners. She's like, I know I'm your boss, but I also like I consider you a peer, and I feel like I will be accountable to you, and I want to help you out in all the ways that you've helped me. Fuck yeah, down, because disappointing her is the one thing that will shame me into doing things.
Nandini, did you hear that? She said the exact same thing. Like her best advice for people in the creative field, get an accountability partner that you are a little bit intimidated by.
That's exactly it. That like a little bit of intimidation,
Mhm.
because she
Yeah.
once told me that I scare her, and I was like, really? And I was like,
What?
cool, like in a powerhouse kind of way, which I
Sure.
appreciate. But I loved it, and I was like, oh, good, because I feel the same way about you. So
Oh my
it's like,
God.
oh, that's
You just
it,
gotta trick
exactly.
yourself into
You gotta
it.
trick yourself. How are you wired? How do you hack the wiring? That's what
Yeah.
you have to do. Yeah.
Hey, also acknowledge that your wiring changes daily, sometimes hourly, and it's okay to shake things up.
Also, yeah.
Another really cool habit I have from Isabel Sterling, my coach, the author Burnout Cure podcast. She taught me about, she uses the Google Calendar's weekly view, which is really, really helpful because I can see like, it accommodates my brain about like 7 days a week, but the hours that I'm active.
Yes.
And I put in there the planned day agenda ahead of time, but I also then rearrange it as I go and I annotate what I actually did. So that helps me in the moment
Yeah.
plan for the following day or the next day of like,
Yes.
this is what I had as a pattern of energy 2 weeks ago. It's not the same now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a really great book. I can't remember if I brought this up on my podcast, but ADHD 2.0. And this idea of like green light days, yellow light days, red light days, because you're going to have variable energy, especially as a neurodivergent person. Some days you wake up, that like you wake up at 6, you're excited. I also woke up at 6.
Are you serious?
I can even grab it. It started working on like well, okay, so I started sewing 2 pairs of leggings, and then there's also a bodysuit in here somewhere.
Oh my
Anyways,
gosh.
I got a whole bunch of I started sewing, and then I made okonomiyaki. I was like, I'm talking to Erica today. So it's like they were like, yeah.
Maybe our 2 new podcasts is just gonna be you and me going back and forth. My favorite episode of Beavis and Butthead is one of them sells 1 candy bar for school, and they just keep buying each other's candy bar with that $1. I don't know if it's the same episode, but they win the lottery and they buy a lawnmower, like a riding mower, and then it runs out of gas, and then they just like walk home. What were you saying?
Just being gracious to yourself about, okay, if I have a high energy day, I'm gonna hit this. I also realized too, when I'm depressed, I get up late. When I'm doing well, I get up really fucking early. Like I feel like I'm the flip of most neurodivergent people. Like if I'm up at 6, I'm getting so much done before my workday even starts. My plants are all watered. I've made myself breakfast and lunch, and I might have batched food for the rest of the week. Like it's a different, especially if I wake up and I get up immediately, especially with grief. I would wake up and I just wouldn't get out of bed for like an hour or 2. If I wake up, get up, my day started, it's all kicked in, and I'm like, okay, I'm more focused, I get things done, I'm more organized.
Back to the grief piece, guys. Anybody curious about it? I am the opposite, and it's okay that we obviously there's no fucking grief handbook. I'm gonna write one, but the whole thing is gonna be blank. My grief doesn't manifest necessarily in like depressive moods or sadness. It's anxiety.
Yes.
Something is miswired,
Mhm.
probably because of past traumas. And it's just like, I should be over this by now. Like, I want to rush the grief process always. So what mine
Yeah.
manifests as like, I wake up and I can't figure out what to do first. Brush my teeth or go to the bathroom or let the dogs out or check on the birds. Like, do I put a bra on? Do I not? Like, that's in the first 30 seconds of wakefulness. So I have no problem getting out of bed if I'm sad. It's just because it comes out as anxiety. I realize now I'm just considering it as excess energy.
Yeah.
I just have to spend it.
Yeah. Right.
So for Vanessa, yours is like, your grief will sometimes come out as depression, hard to
Oh,
get out of
yeah.
bed.
Yes.
We are all familiar with that. Like, I still have that
Yeah.
sometimes, but for grief, like the in the moment, still raw, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 6 hours into grief, my overproduction of adrenaline because of whatever, which I'm hoping to find out with these new doctors,
Yes.
it manifests as anxiety. That's the most familiar my brain can make it.
Yeah.
But my previous trauma therapist said, hey, when I get that, I consider it excessive energy and I just spend it on something like sewing. Like, I have a whole I have a sewing basket, just like mending.
So great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And I have a coloring book station. I have markers, like little stations all around the house for the excess of energy.
Yeah. It's interesting because you mentioned you had inattentive and I got diagnosed with mixed. And I wonder if it's because I started having panic attacks when I was 5, so I've always dealt with anxiety. Yeah.
I'm so
Much more
sorry. I
managed
had
now.
like,
Well, and again, energy, right? Like it especially when you're young, and frankly, fuck, if you're a girl, it just gets dismissed. It just gets
it
turned into
does.
something else, and especially neurodivergence. Oh, you're just gifted, right? So
Mhm.
rather than like teach you how to manage your energy properly or how to put brakes on yourself, right? Because it's another thing from ADHD 2.0. It's like race car brain, bicycle brakes, right? Which I think about all the time because that's me.
That was you that told me that phrase. Somebody,
Yeah.
you're the one that told me that recently?
I'm
Race car
I
brain, bicycle brakes.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've been quoting that since I read that book, so probably
Dude.
since our podcast
Oh my
episode for
God.
personal pants. Yeah. Yeah.
That
So it's
feels
that like, oh, you're gifted. So we'll just keep pushing you to see how much more you can do. And then you get burnt out when you're in your early 20s. Like, it's the most despicable thing. Hopefully things have changed, but man, when we were growing up, it was the most despicable things that they did to girls. Oh, just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Oh, you can do this. How about this? Oh, you can carry this. How about this also? Please.
I didn't know my doll existed until I was 23. You gotta suffer to be a woman. Pain is a part of the process. You're gonna be a mother someday. That is what I heard about cramps. Meanwhile, fucking endometriosis. So,
Oh my God, right.
Jesus, like, I didn't, and I was living with a friend at the time, and she's like, Erica, are you okay? I'm like, the cramps are the worst. She's like, why don't you take something for it? I'm like, you can't take anything. And she's like, how about Tylenol? How about ibuprofen? How about Midol? I'm like, what the fuck is Midol? And she's like, oh my God. And she gave me some, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is not nauseating.
Yeah, I can semi-function. Right. Right.
Oh my
Right.
God.
Yes.
I don't think we can beat that, babe.
I know.
Hey, how can our listeners find you on socials to follow you and do all the things and hire you?
Oh, yes, perfect. You can reach me, you can find me everywhere at KALI Butterfly. That's Kali Butterfly. I'm some variation of that. On
Okay.
Instagram, there's an underscore. Everywhere
Sweet.
else, it's Kali Butterfly, KaliButterfly.com.
This was gold, and I love you and
So
thank
good.
you.
I love you too. I'm
All
so
right.
glad you reached out to me.
I am too. I'm gonna stop recording and then
Okay.
we're gonna level up and exchange phone numbers.
Oh,
Okay.
thank
Bye.
God.
Time for a topic change.
Were you a WrestleMania fan before this?
I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid. Yeah.
Nice.
So like the
That's full
Bushwhackers.
circle. Oh my
It's
God.
been
I
so
love
healing.
that.
Like I watched wrestling as a kid all the time. Like all the
Oh.
time. Love the Bushwhackers, love Roddy Piper. Rest in peace. I loved him so much. I still do. And it's been so wild to like come back to that and to be working at a professional level for it. like there's no way for me to articulate how meaningful that has been.
You should be so proud of that. I know you are.
I
and
am. Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Yeah.
I'm talking to Erica today.